She clung to my leg, crying, "Please don't leave me again." I looked over her shoulder, and there stood my sister, frozen, pale, and speechless. She knew the truth was about to explode. But this time, I wasn't backing down. It started 5 years ago, the day I walked away from the only family I had left. My name is Alina. I was raised in the shadows of my older sister, Maya, the golden child, the one who did everything right. People called her charming. I called her convincing. But what no one knew was that Maya was a master manipulator, and I was her favorite puppet. After her parents died in a car accident when I was 20 and she was 25, Maya took control. She said she was protecting me. That I wasn't ready. That the world was too cruel for someone like me. I believed her. She handled the inheritance, sold the house, moved us into a new city. She told everyone we were starting over. But for me, it felt more like starting under. Maya controlled everything, the finances, the decisions, even who I was allowed to be friends with. I didn't question it at first. She was grieving too, right? We only had each other. But grief faded. Her control didn't. It took me 3 years to build the courage to leave. I moved into a small apartment 2 hours away, started a job at a daycare, and finally began breathing again. I didn't speak to Maya much. Whenever I did, she made me feel guilty. Like I abandoned her. So I cut contact. But last week, everything changed. A little girl named Ellie joined the daycare. She was sweet, shy, and had the same dimple on her left cheek I used to have as a kid. She was 5, with the same soft brown curls Maya and I both had. The first time I saw her, my heart stopped. I knelt down to tie her shoes and asked gently, "Hey, what's your mommy's name?" She said, "Maya." My world spun. Maya had never told me she was pregnant. In all those phone calls and forced updates, she never mentioned a child. But Ellie looked just like us. That night, I couldn't sleep. Memories I buried clawed their way back. Maya whispering to someone late at night. Locked bedroom doors. Mood swings. Sudden trips to the hospital she never explained. I thought it was grief. Now, I wasn't so sure. The next day at daycare, Ellie ran up to me with a drawing. It was a picture of 2 women holding hands with a little girl in between. One was labeled Mommy. The other was labeled My Other Mommy. I asked, "Who's this?" She looked up and smiled. "You." My throat closed. "Why do you think I'm your other mommy?" She shrugged. "Mommy said I used to live with you when I was a baby." I stood there frozen. Tears welled up in my eyes. She couldn't be mistaken. Kids remember weird things, sure. But this? It was too exact. I needed answers. That night, I drove to Maya's house. I hadn't been there in years. The door looked the same, but the air around it felt heavier. I rang the bell. She opened the door and froze. "Alina? We need to talk. Now." She looked nervous. Like she already knew why I was there. Inside, the house was spotless. Too spotless. No signs of toys, no photos of Ellie. You wouldn't even know a child lived there. "Where's Ellie?" I asked. She hesitated. "At a friend's." "What's going on?" I pulled out the drawing Ellie gave me. Her face went white. "You have a daughter, Maya. And you never told me." She sat down slowly. "It's complicated. Try me." And that's when she said it. She's not just my daughter, Alina. She's yours, too. My world collapsed. What are you talking about? She looked away. 5 years ago, after the accident, you were a mess. You don't remember, but you were pregnant. He left you. And you were spiraling. I had to step in. I told the doctors I'd take responsibility. I told them I was the mother. I signed the papers. You stole my baby? I raised her. You weren't in a place to be a mother. You didn't even remember being pregnant half the time. The grief broke you, Alina. I fell to the floor. Memories came rushing back. The nausea. The weight gain. The dizzy spells. I thought it was stress. Maya kept saying it was. But it wasn't. I stood up, trembling. You had no right. I saved her. And you. No, Maya. You saved yourself. You wanted control. So you took everything from me. I walked out. The next morning, I filed for legal action. I had no idea if I had a case. But I wasn't going to let her rewrite my life. A week later, Maya came to the daycare. Ellie ran to me and hugged my legs tight. Please don't leave me again. And that's when Maya saw us. Frozen. Pale. Speechless. Because the truth? It was no longer hers to hide. The silence after that moment was deafening. Amber, just 7 years old, stared at me with wide eyes. She had no idea what she'd just done. But I did. And I could see it hit Lily like a truck. Her jaw clenched, her eyes went glassy, but she forced a laugh. Oh honey, Lily said tightly, kneeling beside Amber. You mean Auntie, right? Amber looked confused. No. I meant Mommy. Lily's smile twitched. She looked at me like I'd somehow planted those words in her daughter's head, and I swear, if we weren't in a room full of people, she might have exploded. I knelt too, brushing Amber's curls behind her ear. It's okay, sweetie. You can call me whatever you feel. Amber wrapped her arms around me, tight. And that's when Lily stood up and walked away. Fast. No goodbye. No explanation. No closure. And just like that, Lily was gone again. I thought she'd cool down. That she'd come back in a few days. But she didn't. Instead, I got a cease and desist letter 2 days later. Lily was trying to block me from seeing Amber. The letter claimed I was confusing the child emotionally and overstepping boundaries. She wanted me to cease all contact. My hands shook as I read it. This wasn't just jealousy. It was war. And worst of all, Amber was right in the middle. I could have fought back right away, hired a lawyer, pressed for visitation, maybe even custody. But I didn't. Not yet. Because something deeper was happening here, something Lily was desperate to hide. Why would she go nuclear over one slip-up? What was she so afraid of? So instead of reacting, I waited. I watched. And I started digging. I began by reaching out to Lily's ex-husband, Amber's supposed father, Brent. He and Lily split a year after Amber was born. Lily always painted him as an absent, deadbeat dad. But when I found him online and messaged him, his response surprised me. He replied the same day. Amber isn't mine, he wrote. Lily never wanted me to get a DNA test. I always felt something was off, but I loved that little girl. I sat back, stunned. He didn't even believe Amber was his. This was bigger than I thought. I decided to press further. I asked Brent if he still had any of Amber's old things, hairbrushes, toothbrushes, anything that might hold DNA. He paused before responding. I kept her baby blanket, he said. There's a strand of hair on it. Why? And that's when the plan locked in my mind. I would get a DNA test. Not just between Brent and Amber. Between me and Amber. If Lily had lied once, what else had she covered up? It took 2 weeks for the results to come back. And when I opened that email, I swear the world stopped spinning. Amber was my daughter. Mine. Not Lily's. Not Brent's. Mine. My knees gave out. I sat on the floor, rereading the report 100 times. But there was no denying it. The markers matched. The genetic lines were clear. Amber was born from me. But how? The next step was the hardest. I confronted my mother. I printed the results and drove straight to her house. She opened the door with her usual tight-lipped smile. Didn't expect to see you. Yeah, I said, holding the paper up. I didn't expect this either. She read it and turned pale. You knew, I said quietly. Didn't you? She didn't deny it. Instead, she sat down heavily on the couch. I told Lily she couldn't keep the baby, but she wouldn't listen. You were in a coma. They told us you wouldn't wake up. Lily was there when Amber was born. And she begged me to let her raise her. Said she could give her a stable home. Said you'd never know. That it would be easier if Amber never found out. I stood frozen. I was in a coma? I whispered. For 2 months. You lost a lot of blood during delivery. They didn't think you'd make it. And when I did, you didn't remember anything. The doctors said not to push it. Said amnesia from trauma was common. I felt like I'd been stabbed. You let me believe she was hers. You weren't ready. She took my child. Tears blurred my vision. My mom reached out, but I backed away. You chose her lies over my truth. That night, I called a lawyer. Everything that had once confused me, Lily's control over Amber, her distance from me, her panic when Amber called me mom, it all made sense now. She didn't adopt my child. She stole her. Legal battles are ugly. Especially when family is involved. But this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. And most importantly, about Amber. The courts ordered a full investigation. Lily was furious, of course. Claimed I was mentally unstable, trying to steal her daughter. But when the DNA results were presented, the judge's demeanor shifted completely. You're telling me, he said, looking at Lily, that you knowingly passed off your sister's child as your own for 7 years? Lily tried to speak. Her lawyer interrupted. We withdraw all claims. And just like that, the truth won. Amber came home that week. For real. I was terrified. I didn't know how she'd react, if she'd be confused, hurt, lost. But when I opened the door and saw her run into my arms, I knew, she already knew where she belonged. Mama, she whispered. Not Auntie. Not by mistake. This time, she meant it. And I held her like I'd never let go again. If this story gripped you, make sure to subscribe, like, and share to support more powerful stories like this. You never know who needs to hear what truth really looks like.